Hello everyone, hope you all are doing well. So today we are going to solve one past paper questions of the consolidation. This is the basic question if there is a change in the status. Change in the status means let's say you have an investment of 10% in any entity. So we all know this is the normal investment, or you can say this is the trade investment, which is accounted for as per IFRS 9 financial instrument. After some time, you acquire further more shareholding. Let's say you acquire 15% further or additional investment in that entity or in that company. Then you have a total investment of 25%. So now you have a 25% investment. So it means you have a significant influence in that company. So you all know whenever there is a significant influence which is accounted for as per IAS 28 investment in associate. Now after few more months, you acquired further 25% or 30% investment. Now the total investment you have is more than 50%, and we all know whenever parent company acquired more than 50% shares in any entity, that entity becomes the subsidiary of the parent company. And whenever there is a parent subsidiary relationship, we have to do the consolidation. Consolidation means adding together accounting. So as you all know, I have a updated playlist of all the SBR and F7 lectures, which I have uploaded on my ACCA Passpoint channel. Also, I have a separate WhatsApp group for my students. If you are not added in my WhatsApp group, then please comment down. I will give you the link. In that group, I share most important things from lectures, from topic wise questions, assignments, and other notes as well, which I personally feel important for all of you. I have a separate group for F7 financial reporting, SBR strategic business reporting, AAA advanced assurance audit, and ATX SBL as well. So if you want to add in any of these WhatsApp group, then comment down. I will give you the link. Okay, guys. We have done with the consolidation in the lectures which already uploaded on the ACCA Passpoint channel. So today we will solve one of the past paper questions, which is a basic question. Why I choose this question? So that you can revise your concept of the step acquisition. So today's lecture is about the consolidated statement of financial position if there is a change in status, or you can say step acquisition. So now guys, IFRS 10 consolidation change in status. So there are four types of status. Today we will cover one type with the help of past paper questions, and yesterday and day after we will tomorrow and day after tomorrow we will solve other questions in which we will cover the remaining three types as well. So don't worry, in today's lecture we will start with the trade, with the normal investment. Let's say first you have a normal investment, 10% investment, and after few months you acquired additional 45%. So it means the total investment you have in that particular entity is 55%. So now you move from the trade investment to the subsidiary. So that means you have to do the adding together, consolidated accounting. Let's start. IFRS 10 consolidation change in status. Types of changes in status. Normal investment to associate. This is type 1. Normal investment to associate means from IFRS 9 to IAS 28. Normal investment, let's say you have a 10%, then you acquired additional 15%. And we all know when you are going to acquire from 20% to 50%, you have a significant influence in that entity, and for that you have to do the IAS 28, means equity accounting. Now guys, type 2 is associate to subsidiary. It means you have 25% shareholding. After some times you acquired additional 35% shareholding, so the total shareholding now you have is 55. So it means from IAS 28 equity accounting to IFRS 10 consolidation accounting, adding together. Type 3 is normal investment to subsidiary. Let's say you have a 10% shareholding in today's time. After few months, you will acquire additional 50%, 55%, or more than that. So it means you are changing your status from trade, from normal investment 10% to the consolidation to the subsidiary 55% investment. So from IFRS 9 to IFRS 10. Today we will solve question on the type 3. The last type is subsidiary to subsidiary. In this type, there is no change in status. Previously, the entity was your subsidiary, and after acquiring additional shares, still the entity is your subsidiary. Acquire more shares. Now, in this case, let's say you have a 60% shareholding in ABC company. So we all know if parent have a 60% shareholding, then the remaining 40% shareholding is by the NCI. Now, after some times, you are acquire further 20% shareholding. So it means your 20% shareholding is increasing and NCI 20% shareholding is decreasing. So in this case, NCI shareholding is increasing, but there is no change in your status. Still, the subsidiary is your subsidiary because previously you have 60% and now you are acquiring additional 20%. I hope I made these four types very clear and easy for you. Still you have any doubts, then it's my humble request, please try to watch the lectures of IFRS 10, IFRS 3 business combination. I have recorded the basic to advanced lectures of the consolidation on ACCA Pass Point channel under the playlist of SBR. So you can easily watch all the IAS and IFRS lecture from IAS 36 impairment to IFRS 9, IFRS 10, IFRS 3. Whatever standard is in your syllabus, you can watch that lecture on the ACCA Pass Point channel. Now guys, so this is the case which we will going to solve in today's past paper question. Normal investment to subsidiary means from IFRS 9 to IFRS 10. Let's start with the question. This is June 11 question. Question number 1. The draft statement of financial position of Oceana Global Limited OGL and its subsidiary Rivera Global Limited RGL as of March 31st, 2011 are as follows. So the 31st March 2011 is your year end date, means reporting date. Now, this is the parent, OGL is the parent, RGL is the subsidiary. So this column, these transactions of the OGL means parent, and these are the column of the RGL, the subsidiary. Now you have assets in the PPE 700 for the parent and 200 for the subsidiary. Intangible assets only in the parent company books, not in the subsidiary book. Investment in RGL. Opening balance 23. Investment in RGL acquired during the year 108. So these are the consideration. Now you can think why there are two investment. Guys, I have already mentioned in the start that this is the case of change in status. So it means first you have a less investment. After few months, as mentioned during the year, you acquired additional shareholding. So of course, whenever you are going to acquire additional shareholding, you have to pay for it. Now current assets 350 for the parent and 150 for the subsidiary. Equity and liabilities, share capital. Ordinary shares of rupees 100 each. So total shareholding of the parent is 300 and subsidiary is 100. So in order to calculate the number of shares, you have to divide this 100 million by each rupees share, 100 rupees each share. So 100 million divided by 100, you will get the number of shares. Now guys, retained earnings 550 for the parent and 80 for the subsidiary. Fair value reserve only in the parent book, which is 3. Non-current liabilities 150 for the parent, 40 for the subsidiary. Current liabilities 182 for the parent and 130 for the subsidiary. So now guys, I have explained each and every line item of the FS. Now, the details of OGL's investment in RGL are as under. It means the details of the parent investment in RGL are as under. Please guys be attentive. Acquisition date, there are two acquisitions. First acquisition is 1st July 2009, means 2 years before the year end. Year end is 31st March 2011. Second acquisition is 1st October 2010, means 6 months before the year end. Now guys, fair value of shares acquired. If you can see, there are no shareholding percentage given by the examiner. Only examiner gives you the face value of shares acquired. 10 million in case of first acquisition and 45 million in case of second acquisition. So now guys, how to calculate the shareholding percentage? If you remember, in the start, in the share capital, I have told you that 100 million divided by 100, you will get the number of shares. So what you have to do in order to calculate the shareholding percentage, this face value of shares acquired means 10 million should be divided by the number of shares, you will get your shareholding percentage. So if you divide 10 million with the number of shares, which is around 10 million or 100 million, you will get the 10% shareholding. 10% shareholding cost of investment is 20. Okay. 10% shareholding cost of investment is 20, means when you are going to acquire 10% shareholding in the RGL company, you paid 20 million. Now on 1st October 2010, you are acquiring additional 45. How 45? 45%. 45 million is the total, is the face value of shares acquired, and the number of shares you have acquired. How to calculate? 100 million divided by 100, you will get the number of shares. Then 45 million divided by number of shares, you will get the 45 percentage. So now guys, total percentage, total shareholding you have on 1st October 2010 is 55%. Why 55? You have already acquired 10% and now on 1st October 2010, you are acquiring additional 45. So it means total, the accumulate shareholding you have in RGL on 1st October 2010 is 55 percentage. And for this 45, you paid 108. So this is your cost of investment, which you have to incorporate in order to calculate the goodwill. Why include this figure? Because this is the date from which you have to do the consolidation accounting, adding together. On this date, you become a parent, you acquired a control over RGL. I hope I am explaining in better way. Now, guys, other information relevant to the preparation of the consolidated financial statements is as under. Now, these are the additional information which you have to incorporate during your answer. Point number or information number 1. On October 1st, 2010, mean on the first acquisition, sorry, on the second acquisition, means adding together consolidation accounting date. On 1st October 2010, the fair value of RGL's assets was equal to their carrying value, except for non-depreciable land. It means all the net assets of the subsidiary are equal to the fair value, means all the net assets subsidiary carrying value equal to the fair value. Only the exception is land, which is a non-depreciable asset, which had a fair value of rupees 35 million as against the carrying value of rupees 10 million. So it means 10 million carrying amount has already included in the SOFP. Let me show you. Already included in this figure. But the fair value is 35, and we all know at the acquisition date, all the net assets, all the identifiable net assets of the subsidiary should be recorded at fair value. So you have to add 25 million in the subsidiary net assets acquisition date packet and reporting date packet. Remember the step 1 if you have watched my lectures. Now guys, 10 million is already included, but there is a shortage of 25 million because the fair value is 35 million. So it means in order to reach at the fair value, you have to include 25 million more. That's why your balance should be equal. Now guys, on 1st October 2010, the fair value of RGLs, means subsidiary shares, that were acquired by OGL on 1st July 2009 amounted to rupees 28 million. It means the existing investment, the 10% investment which acquired by OGL in RGL on 1st July 2009 has a fair value on 1st October 2010 is rupees 28 million. And if you have watched my lectures in which I have explained, whenever the fair value of the existing investment, in this case, the existing investment is 10%. Whenever the fair value of the existing investment is increasing, then the gain should be reported in P&L. Why this gain is reported in P&L, not in OCI? Look, guys. This transaction is not between the equity owners because this is not between the equity owner. Previously, you have 10%. You did not have a control over RGL. After some times, you acquired additional 45%. Then on that, you obtain control over RGL. So it means this transaction is not between the equity owners. So that's why the gain or loss should be reported in P and L. In this case, there is a gain of 5 million. How 5 million? Let me show you. Look, at the date of acquisition of 10% shareholding, July 1, 2009, you paid 20 million. Now the fair value is 28 million. So what do you think, guys? So that's why you have to book this gain in the group reserve in the step 4. Don't worry, when we start solving this question, you will get better clarity. Now guys, point number 3. RGL's retained earning, means subsidiary retained earnings on 1st October 2010 amounted to rupees 60 million. This is the retained earning at the acquisition date. And the reporting date retained earning is given in the question. You can see 80 million. Now, point number 4 or information number 4. Intangible assets represent amount paid to a consultant for rendering professional services. Means you paid amount to a consultant for rendering professional services. Why? For the acquisition of 45, means for the acquisition of additional 45% equity in RGL. So it means you have paid a service fee. So it's an expense. But what OGL did? OGL recorded it as an intangible asset. Let me show you this one. The entry should be PNL or expense debit cash credit. What OGL did? OGL debit the intangible rather than expense. So it means OGL should have to made an adjusting entry. And the adjusting entry is PNL debit intangible credit because intangible was incorrectly capitalized. That's why in order to remove this intangible from the books, OGL should have to credit the intangible and debit the PNL, which was not done by OGL. Now guys, information number 5. During February 2011, RGL subsidiary sold goods as 2P sale. So it means the unrealized profit is in the books of subsidiary. I am the subsidiary and I am selling goods to the parent company. So it means the profit, the unrealized profit is recorded by me in my books. And as per the group account, as per the IFRS 10 consolidation, group did not consider this a real sale. It's an unrealized profit. It's between the group person, it's between the group members. So whenever there is intra-group transactions, such transactions should be eliminated. Now guys, during February 2011, RGL sold goods costing, this is the cost, 25 million to OGL at a price of 30 million. The cost of the goods was 25 million and RGL sold to OGL at rupees 30. So it means there is a gain, there is a profit of 5 million. But hold, this is not an unrealized profit. Why? Read this line. 25% of these goods were included in OGL's clothing inventory. It means out of 5 million profit, 25% of these goods were still included in OGL's clothing inventory. So it means the unrealized profit is 25% of 5 million, which is 1.25. If the examiner mentioned that 0% or none of these goods were included in OGL's closing inventory, then it means there is no unrealized profit. Why? Because the complete inventory, the complete goods is sold by OGL to the third party. This is the real transaction. This is not the intra-group transaction because this transaction is made outside the group persons. So in that case, no need to record the unrealized profit in your books. Now guys, and 50% of the amount was payable by OGL. This is the intra-group transactions, means receivable payable. And 50% of the amount was payable by OGL. 50% of this amount. Look, RGL sold to OGL at 30 and out of this 30, 50% means 15 million of the amount was payable by OGL. So again, it's an intra-group transaction. Again, group does not consider this transaction. So what entry you should make? You should debit the payable and credit the receivable to eliminate this impact. OGL follows a policy of valuing NCI, means non-controlling interest, at its fair value. It means we have to calculate the goodwill on fair value method or full goodwill method. No proportionate method should be used. The fair value of NCI in RGL on the acquisition date amounted to rupees 70 million. Fair value of the NCI at acquisition is 70 million. So now guys, we are done with all the information and extract of the SOFP. Let's start solving this question. So guys, here you have an answer. First, you have to do the basic working. What is the basic working in this case? Which I have explained above. On 1st July 2009, OGL, parent company, acquired 10%. How 10%? I have explained it. 10 million is the fair value of face value of the shares and divided by 100. This is the number of shares. 10 million is the amount divided by number of shares, you will get the percentage of shareholding shares. This is a trade investment as per IFRS 9. No need to write it should be accounted for as per, it should be accounted for under equity, OCI and PNL, because there is nothing mentioned in the question, so no need to explain. However, on 1st October 2010, OGL parent company acquired further 45%. How 45%? 45 is the face value of the shares divided by number of shares. Shares in RGL. So total shareholding on 1st October 2010 is 55%. 10 plus 45, 55%, which means OGL has control over RGL. Therefore, from this date, consolidation accounting, adding together, will be started or will be made. Now, guys, we all know in the consolidation statement of financial position, there are 4 steps. If you want to get all marks in this question, then you have to be expert in these 4 steps. Or if you just want to secure passing marks, then it's up to you. Step number 1, net assets of subsidiary RGL. You have to make these packets at acquisition date packet, at reporting, and the net. Net means reporting minus acquisition. Ordinary share capital of subsidiary. These all the data related to subsidiary. Okay. Ordinary share capital of subsidiary at acquisition and at reporting. We have to eliminate the share capital of the subsidiary. That's why the same share capital should be incorporated at the reporting and at the acquisition, which is 100 million. Now retained earning at acquisition is 60 million given in the other information, and 80 million is the given in the draft financial statement. So the difference is 20. This is the post profit. Now guys, there are fair value adjustment which given in the other information number 1. Land. Land is a non-depreciable asset. So 25 million. How 25? Carrying amount was the 10 and the fair value was the 35. So there is an additional excess. So we have to reach at the fair value. Then we have to add 25 million more. So 25 million at the acquisition and at the reporting, because land is not depreciated. So the net difference is 0. Land is a non-depreciable asset. Now guys, unrealized profit. S2P, sales of inventory. Remember, cost was 25, selling price was 30, profit was 5, and 25% of these goods is still included in the parent company inventory. So guys, sales price was 30, cost was 25, so the profit was 5. And unrealized profit is 1.25. How 1.25? 5 million multiplied by 25%, because 25% of the goods is still included in the OGL closing stock. Now guys, unrealized profit you have to deduct from the reporting date packet. Now you can see why there is 1, not 1.25. Guys, this is just because of the rounding issue. It's 1.25. You can see here. S2P, sale of inventory. Now you are done with all the assets at acquisition and at reporting. So you have to total it. Net assets of the subsidiary at acquisition total is 185, at reporting is 204. The difference is 18.75. This difference, this is the post acquisition profit, which should be allocated between the NCI and the parent company according to their percentage. In this case, the parent shareholding is 55, so 55% of 18.75 should be allocated to the parent company, and the remaining 45% should be allocated to the NCI. As 25% of these goods were included in OGL's closing inventory, therefore unrealized profit is 1.255 million profit multiplied by 25%. Now guys, step number 2. Goodwill. Cost of investment. Remember, the cost of investment was 108 million of the additional 45%. Because from this date, we start consolidation accounting. So cost of investment is 108. You can also write cost of investment of new or additional investment of 45%, which is 108. Now, fair value of existing investment, 10% is 28. Remember, it's given in the question. That fair value should also be incorporated in the calculation of goodwill. Please be attentive. Now, guys, fair value of NCI given in the last information point, which is 70. Then you have a fair value of net assets of RGL at acquisition 185. You deducted the goodwill is 21. Guys, this is the full goodwill method. That's why we are not allocating the parent percentages. Okay, you have to be informative about the difference between the proportionate and full goodwill method. So now guys, we are done with the step 1 and 2. Now we are just left with step 3 and 4. After that, we will make the consolidated statement of financial position. Step number 3, NCI. Fair value of NCI given in the question 70 million, which we also incorporated in the goodwill calculation. Now, post-acquisition profit is 8.44. How 8.44? Remember, in the step 1, we calculated the post-profit, which is 18.75. And the NCI shareholding is 45. How 45? Because out of 100, 55% is the parent. So the remaining is the NCI shareholding, which is 45. The total NCI value is 78.44. It's just because of rounding off. Okay. Step 4, consolidated retained earning, or you can say consolidated reserve. Parent retained earning given in the draft SOFP 550. Post acquisition profit 10.3125. How 18.75 multiply by parent shareholding 55%. Intangible. Remember, parent incorrectly capitalized this intangible asset. So the entry is P&L, debit P&L whenever there is a word P&L in the consolidation. So it means group reserve. So group reserve debit, that's why you have to deduct it. It's an expense which is incorrectly capitalized. Gain in existing investment, which is 5 million. How 5 million? Let me show you. Look, guys. If you can see, the investment in RGL is 23 million. Okay. Means the existing investment, 10% investment in RGL is 23 million. But the fair value is 28. So 23 minus 28, there is a gain of 5 million. So that's why the entry is investment debit, consolidated reserve, or consolidated retained earning credit. That's why you added 5 million in the step 4. So the total consolidated retained earning is 561.31. So now guys, we are done with all the adjustment. Now what to do? Just do the adding together. Now guys, consolidated statement of financial position. First we have a PPE is 925. How 925? 700 is the value of the parent given in the draft SOFP. 200 is the subsidiary and 25 is the land access amount. Remember, in the subsidiary packet, we incorporate this fair value adjustment of 25. Now, guys, goodwill 21 we calculated above. Intangible asset. In the draft SOFP of the parent, there was 4 million of the intangible, but that was incorrectly capitalized. So you already passed the entry P&L or group reserve debit and intangible credit. That's why the intangible is 0. Current assets 484. 350 is the parent, 150 is the subsidiary. Now these are the adjustment of the S2P sales of inventory. If you remember, it's written that 50% of the amount payable by the OGL. So it's an intra-group transaction. That's why the entry is payable debit, receivable credit. Receivable credit means your current assets will go down. So 30 is the sales price multiplied by 50%. You will get the payable amount, receivable amount. Minus 1.25. 1.25 is the unrealized profit of the inventory. So you will get the total assets of 1429. This is because of rounding off. So it's 1430. Now guys, equity ordinary share capital of parent company, because the subsidiary share capital we have already incorporated in the step 1. So ordinary share capital of P company 300, parent retained earning 561 we just calculated in the step 4. Fair value of NCI 78 we calculated in the step 3. Fair value of reserve is 3 given in the SOFP, in the draft SOFP. Liability is non-current liability, 190, 150 is the parent, 40 is the subsidiary. Current liability is 297, 182 is the parent, 130 is the subsidiary. Again, intra-group transactions, look, receivable credit, payable debit, that's why it's payable debit, so it means your liability is decreasing. That's why you have to deduct it. Now guys, total of the liabilities is 487 and the total of the equity is 942. Once you add together, you will get 1492. So it means the net asset is 0 because it's also 1429, because of rounding off it is 1430. So it means the consolidated statement of financial position is balance its tally. So now guys, we are done with this question. This question comes for the 16 marks. I hope I explain each and everything which is relevant to this topic and to this question. Still, if you have any queries or any confusion with any adjustment or point, please comment down. Also, guys, if you are not watching my lecture or you are following your tutor like you are studying from another tutor, then you may skip these lectures. Why? Because maybe your tutor approach, your tutor style is different from mine style. So it's better you can skip these lectures. I don't want you to be confused because every tutor have a different style or a different approach for studying. So I want you to skip these lectures if you are studying from another tutor. So take care and best wishes for your next attempt exam and for your results as well.